way! Hi guys, it's Pure Gamer and today we are back with the Nurburgring special. Now today we're using 3 types of cars, all in the same class. They're all basically based on the Lamborghinis of the inversion of GTA's cars. Now today we're using the Pegasus Reaper first. We're using the modern Lamborghini. It wasn't the first car, the first Lamborghini we had in the game. That was the one that we'll do next. But we want to try and see whether the older one's better than the new one, and then try the even newer one after the old one. So get straight with it, and we are straight off the line now with an immediate boost. Now we've got to get past our first corners. Now we've got to remember, we've had some crashes on this track, we've had some really good speeds, we've had our fastest cars around the track, and we're going to see if these Lamborghinis can beat the speed. I doubt it, but we'll have to see what these cars can do. Now as you can already see, the car is sliding absolutely everywhere because this car doesn't have the best grip. It is basically, I would take it down a drag strip, not round a circuit, because it's not going to be the best unless it's on a straight. As you can see, it handles perfectly, but then when you go around the corners you have to put a bit more steering into it for it to stick onto the track. Now we're on the straight, and then we have a corner, and we've just had a little collision there that's going to slow us down on this little bit straight before we hit problem corner. Remember, if you slow down, that's the worst thing to do through problem corner. Oh, we lost a bit of control there. We're back on it though. Going round the corners, heading towards Millionaire's Mansion. Each corner. Oh, and we've gone off the track. This car is kind of hard to control because you have to remind yourself that it is a very, very fast car, but it doesn't have any good handling at all. It's a bit like the FMJ and the Bullet. The speed is brilliant, but the control and handling is awful. As you can see there, just like cutting some corners because the car was capable of cutting corners. And we kind of hit the fence there and like kind of spun out a tiny bit. We managed to keep control of it. Now we're going through each corner. We are now heading back down towards the straight, but before we hit the straights we have some of the most vital corners, because these are the corners you test out your top speed around the corners. So when you head back up to Vinewood, you know your top speed of how fast you can go through each corner. So each corner we have to make sure that we have the right amount of speed through each corner, otherwise we're just going to spin out and go off the track, and then we're going to have to get back on the track and waste more time. Now we're just on the last bit before we go towards the straight, and then we need to make sure we have the best approach on the straight. So let's hope that happens, but for now we're just going to put our foot down and then hope for the best now, normally. Now we've taken it a bit wide there. Normally you would try and keep as close as you can to the right hand side and corner it as quick as you can, tight as you can, so you're not wasting loads of time on getting enough speed back. Now we're going to just going to go over the bridge now, where all speed is needed once we get past here. Just going past Fort Zancudo, where usually all our speed is taken, but we have actually just gone off. That's going to cause us some time later on. Now we've got less time to spend up in the Vinewood Hills. We're going to make sure that we have loads of speed on the last bit of the straight. And if we're coming off the straight, the best thing we want now is an immediate turn of right. Going past the last bridge there, we need to start braking. That wasn't fast enough around the corner. That's going to cost us a bit more time too. Now we've got the corners and the bends heading back up to Vinewood. Some of the bigger bends now are on this straight, and then we'll head to the Vinewood area where the really narrow bends are and sharp corners are. Each corner again, you can see that we're having to brake because the amount of speed behind this car is brilliant. If it was a drag strip, there'd be no problem with this car, but because it's a proper Nurburgring style track, we're having a few problems. Again, we had to cut a massive corner there just to make sure we'd stay on track. We're getting a little bit of air there. That's our little bit of area where we normally get air. These corners, a bit tight around these corners because we are trying to keep control of this car while trying to corner. It's not like the T20 where it just kept complete control of itself, you didn't really have to handle it. Now we're coming up to the area where we had the big crashes with the Bullet and the FMJ in our Ford episode. Now we're on to the Vinewood areas, so now we have to be more careful. because obviously anything can crash us out now, and these corners are narrow. And as you saw with the FMJ episode, our GT episode, there was quite a lot of crashes around these corners, and that's what lost us a lot of our time, because they're narrow streets, you know, little bits of like pole or like a brick wall sometimes hang out the area. It can be kind of annoying. Now, as you can see, we are really behind schedule, so we need to make sure we're going as fast as we can. But the only problem is, again, this corner's caught us back. Just like the bullet, it's spun out. Because the amount of speed that you need to use when you're going around that corner is a lot to catch up. But if your car hasn't got good handling, it isn't going to help. And we've lost control again. We're going back around the last few final corners. Going on to the last corner now. Yeah, we didn't really keep control of that because we weren't continuously moving while we were doing that. And we are across the line. And can we have a drum roll, please, for our final number? And it's 5 minutes and 14 seconds. That is not our slowest vehicle, but it is definitely not our fastest vehicle around the track. Now, it's time to talk about the car. So this car obviously was able to handle around the track awfully, but it had a good amount of speed, so if there wasn't as many corners, this car probably would have got a lot better time. But because we like to challenge the car in all areas, it's going to cause a problem for the car. Now we're using the Vaca, as you can see, nice orange Vaca. As you know, all these cars here are my personal customised cars. They've all got the same upgrades on them. The only difference are sometimes the visual upgrades, but that doesn't make an effect on the car. So we're immediate off again with a boost start. Perfect. Now we're going to head towards our first corner, where it all matters. You don't want to go around too slowly. Now, as you can see, this car's got a lot more grip, because this was the first car that came with it. It was the first Lamborghini, and it came with the game. You got this in the game immediately when the game came out, and it was a brilliant car. So Rockstar weren't really keeping the cars realistic. As you can see, this doesn't really look like a car that we know. It looks like a Lamborghini, bit of an Aventador and a bit of a Gallardo, but you can't confirm what exactly it is because it doesn't have a full the back of it. I can't tell you what that is. It looks a bit like a Lamborghini Aventador in some areas, but some areas it really just doesn't. So we're on the straight heading towards Problem Corner. Now this is obviously the area where we don't want to slow down. We kept complete control of it, as I already said. This car, it didn't have the Lamborghini realistic controls. It has perfect grip, this car. So if any car is to be good now, hopefully it'll be this car. I'm hoping it's this car, because this car was one of my first supercars actually, because it's a brilliant class of car, this. Also, it had a lot of upgrades. As you can see, you've got some nice spoiler action there and some grille at the back. Right, so we are now heading towards the straight, but we've got to obviously go down the hills. Again, we've got to test the speed, see how fast we can get around the corners. Luckily enough, this car's brilliant grip as well as acceleration, so I'm hoping that this might just be better than the last car, and maybe the next car we're going to use, but we're going to have to find out. Can it keep full control? Because yeah, we're probably going to have a few bumps and scrapes as we've just had there, but hopefully this car can just keep control of itself. Now we're on to the final few corners and bends before we hit the straight, so we need to make sure that we're maximising speed just before we hit the straight corner, because that can slow you down and lose time on your track. So we're on the straight now, heading towards the last bit of the corner here before we hit the straight, and we have just entered the straight across the first bridge where you're getting your full speed, and then once we hit the second bridge, you want to be making sure once you've gone past Fort Zancudo, you have hit full speed, otherwise you're just wasting the straight completely. And we have now maximised speed, and we are in our last gear as far as I'm aware. We might have one more gear to go up, I doubt it. And then we need to start not slowing down, but be prepared to slow down or take a drift around the corner. Now here we go around the corner. That was kind of a sharp corner that went wide at the very end and up onto the hill. Now we're heading back up to the Vinewood area, but before we can go anywhere near Vinewood, we gotta go around some of these big sharp corners and some of the bigger corners and bends. Obviously we've got to make sure that we have full speed, because we don't want to slow down at all on this bit. because we're actually making some really good progress here, so why would we want to slow down at all? As you can see, this car's amazing time on the track so far. It's doing brilliantly, but also it's got the best visuals of the car, so it looks nice. It's also very fast, brilliant handling, the braking's amazing. Not that we've had to brake actually much around this track, because it can handle well around the corners. We're not having to brake as we go through each corner. Now we're officially heading into the Vinewood area. Going to go around our last bit of corner where we have our GT Crash. That's what we're going to call it now, the GT Crash corner. Very, very weird and cringy name, but that's the name we're going to call it, our GT corner, where we had our two GTs crash and flip and cause major scenes. Now, we lost a bit of control there, but we were able to keep full control of it at the end of it. Now we're going, actually, this is probably the fastest we've been through these corners. I felt confident with this car that I could handle it around these corners, because I've been around this area many times, because as I've said, first sports car I had, I've been around this area with this car many times. Not this obviously exact track, but in the area of this is where one of the houses that I have bought and kept a Vaca, because it's such an amazing car. Will it? No, it did not lose control. We had a bit of the back end tried to pull out there, but again we kept control of it. We slowed down a tiny bit there because we're approaching our last final corner. We're making sure that we get maximum speed as we go through this now. Then we've got our very last corner here. And then we're on our final straight as we go across the line any second. And across the line. A drum roll please. And that was 4 minutes and 58. So this is the fastest car we've had out of the two that we've just tested today. And we've got one more car. And let's see how that does. But first of all, we've got to quickly talk about the car. Now the Vac is obviously an amazing price of 240 grand. So it's cheaper out of the one we've just raced, and it's the cheaper version out of the one we're going to race next. So if this does a better time, guys, you know what one to get. But this visually, guys, is the Pegasus Tempest, and visually it looks the best to me at the front. The back kind of lets you down. If they'd have done something a bit more different with the back, it would have been better. They tried to go on a Gallardo look at the back, but then they kind of really messed it up. Now as you can see, the car looks really nice and white with the black split six rims, or Dash VIP. I can never remember which I put on them. It was one of them two. I'll probably say it was the Dash VIP because they just suit the cars best. But as you can see, the back of the car has a Gallardo look on it, but it also looks horrible the way they've kind of made it, because they're going to make their own custom way of it. But we had a boost there, brilliant boost start. Can this car corner well? Well, as you can see, it's got a lot more acceleration. It could cause us a problem because you don't want the fastest car going around the track. As you saw, the T20 is the fastest car around our track. But it's kind of annoying because your fastest cars sometimes can't control perfectly and corner perfectly, but the T20 perfectly did that. And as you've just seen here, we have actually just gone off a little bit, just showing that this car doesn't have the best control. You know, it's got brilliant acceleration but not the best handling. Now as we're going across the straight towards our problem corner, let's hope we get full speed through problem corner. We don't want to slow down. There we go. The only time you want to slow down is when you cross that little bit of dirt. That's the only thing that should slow you down. That's just enough speed to get you across problem corner. Oh, and we've had a bit of a collision. We've actually just lost our front bumper, or front grille, whatever you want to call it. But we've just passed Millionaire's Mansion and we've lost a front grille, front hood, whatever you want to call it. And it's kind of sliding a bit there now around each of the corners. Because obviously when I was recording this, I don't record and talk at the same time. I pre-record and then talk over it. But as you can see, I'm trying to put as much speed as I can into each corner now, because that massive crash there has just cost me a lot of time and could obviously mean I'm going to have a lot more crashes to come. So we're still heading down towards the straight, as you can always tell. When we start heading down, we're heading towards the straight. So you need to make sure you get the most speed out these corners, because you want to make sure that you've had a really good time before you hit the straight. Otherwise you're approaching the straight and on the straight with a bad time, because the only point of the straight is to improve your time, not to like get the best time. Right, okay, so we are now on the last final bit here. We're going to have to turn right now. Can we keep a sharp corner? Nope, none of these Lamborghinis, as they are in real life, have actually been able to corner perfectly. So we're going to have a little bit of a problem now on approaching the straight because you haven't got full speed. But hopefully before we hit this bridge now, we'll have full speed. From the sounds of the car, it has full speed, but we've got a couple more seconds until it passes Fort Zancudo. And it is at full speed, so we're perfectly well. Now obviously you've got to make sure that you don't put too much speed in as you approach the final corner. So round about now you need to start preparing to make a drift or brake on now. And we kind of did both there. We slammed on the brakes and then tried to do a little drift at the end. Kind of lost us kind of a bit of speed. As you can see, we're not doing the best on the time. We really need to make our time back up, so we need to speed around these corners as quick as we can and head up to Vinewood as quick as we can so we can hit the narrow streets, because they're the real corners and like bends that are going to cause us the most problems. So as you can see, we're slowly cornering. Oh, and we've just hit a little like bump in the road and a bit of a pole. Right, we are just about to head to the area where we do now normally get some air in the car, but have we got enough speed to get air? Yes, we've just got enough. Sometimes, you know, you don't go around that fast enough and you won't get enough speed to get the air. But perfectly, we are now just approaching up the hill towards our GT corner. Well, we've had our worst crashes in history on this track, but today could have been one of the worst, but luckily enough we only lost a front grille, or front bumper, whatever you want to call it. It handled perfectly through that corner. Now we've got to make sure we keep full control of the car, because as you saw, the Vaca was flying through these streets. We were going a lot faster in the Vaca through these, but because obviously we've had a crash with this car, I don't want to handle it. I know what the handle's like, so I don't want to floor it through the corners and then the handle then messes up. And it's just about, oh, and we've gone up and we've flipped again. We have flipped again. Oh, we've had a bit of a collision and we've hit a back wall. This is actually one of the cars that is really going to lose loads of time now. I probably should have done really well, but because of its handling, it's lost out on a good time. And it has just spun out a bit like the Vaca, but luckily enough, just like the Vaca, we're able to keep control of it. But unfortunately, it looks like it's just lost any chance of being in the records, because it has an awful time at the moment. Now we're approaching our final corner. Can we do it? And we're onto the straight. Now we need to cross the line as quick as we can. And cross the line at time of, please, 5 minutes and 6 seconds. So obviously it's not the slowest car. It's faster than the first one. And the first one we didn't really have any crashes, but it's not as fast as the Vaca. So guys, you know what to buy. You want to buy any car, buy the Vaca. Brilliant handling, brilliant speed. So that's going to conclude this episode, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, press the notification button down below for instant notifications, and make sure you share the channel around, because there's more of these Nurburgring track sessions. So I'll see you guys next time.